Listening, fill in the blanks.
Let's start.
Other creatures can go further still, however. Animals with active electroreception possess bodily organs that generate special electric signals on cue. These can be used for mating signals and territorial displays, as well as locating objects in the water. Active electroreceptors can differentiate between the various resistances that their electrical currents encounter. This can help them identify whether another creature is prey, predator, or something that is best left alone. Active electroreception has a range of about 1 body length, usually just enough to give its host time to get out of the way or go in for the kill.
Other conservationists, such as Stacy Philpott and colleagues, argue the case for shade coffee, but there are different types of shade growing. Those used by subsistence farmers are virtually identical to natural forest and have a corresponding diversity, while systems that use coffee plants as the understory and cacao or citrus trees as the overstory may be no more diverse than full sun farms. Certification procedures need to distinguish between the two, and Ms. Philpott argues that as long as the process is rigorous and offers financial gains to the producers, shade growing does benefit the environment.
The genetic theory is also undermined by results from Peter Hepper and his team at Queen's University in Belfast, Ireland. In 2000, the psychologists used ultrasound to show that by the 15th week of pregnancy, fetuses already have a preference as to which thumb they suck. In most cases, the preference continued after birth. At 15 weeks, though, the brain does not yet have control over the body's limbs. Hepper speculates that fetuses tend to prefer whichever side of the body is developing quicker, and that their movements, in turn, influence the brain's development. Whether this early preference is temporary or holds up throughout development and infancy is unknown. Genetic predetermination is also contradicted by the widespread observation that children do not settle on either their right or left hand until they are 2 or 3 years old.
It has also been emphasized that in order to learn science, people often have to change the way they think in ordinary situations. For example, in order to understand even simple concepts such as heat and temperature, ways of thinking of temperature as a measure of heat must be abandoned and a distinction between temperature and heat must be learned. These changes in ways of thinking are often referred to as conceptual changes. But how do conceptual changes happen? How do young people change their ways of thinking as they develop and as they learn in school?
They investigated the progress made by 12 to 15-year-old pupils in understanding the path of falling objects, a topic that usually involves conceptual difficulties. In order to create pairs of pupils with varying levels of dissimilarity in their initial conceptions, the pupils' predictions and explanations of the path of falling objects were assessed before they were engaged in pair work. The work sessions involved solving computer-presented problems, again about predicting and explaining the paths of falling objects. A post-test, given to individuals, assessed the progress made by pupils in their conceptions of what influenced the path of falling objects.
Urban parks and formal recreation grounds are valuable for some species, and many of them are increasingly managed with wildlife in mind. But in many places, their significance is eclipsed by the huge legacy of post-industrial land, demolished factories, waste tips, quarries, redundant railway yards and other so-called brownfield sites. In Merseyside, South Yorkshire and the West Midlands, much of this has been spectacularly colonized with birch and willow woodland, herb-rich grassland and shallow wetlands. As a consequence, there are songbirds and predators in abundance over these once industrial landscapes.
Those past collapses tended to follow somewhat similar courses, constituting variations on a theme. Writers find it tempting to draw analogies between the course of human societies and the course of individual human lives, to talk of a society's birth, growth, peak, old age, and eventual death. But that metaphor proves erroneous for many past societies. They declined rapidly after reaching peak numbers and power, and those rapid declines must have come as a surprise and shock to their citizens. Obviously, too, this trajectory is not one that all past societies followed unvaryingly to completion. Different societies collapsed to different degrees and in somewhat different ways, while many societies did not collapse at all. The source of the red is widely known. It is created by anthocyanins, water-soluble plant pigments reflecting the red to blue range of the visible spectrum. They belong to a class of sugar-based chemical compounds also known as flavonoids. What's puzzling is that anthocyanins are actually newly minted, made in the leaves at the same time as the tree is preparing to drop them. But it is hard to make sense of the manufacture of anthocyanins. Why should a tree bother making new chemicals in its leaves when it's already scrambling to withdraw and preserve the ones already there?
Put another way, basic health care is now recognized as a public good, rather than a private good, that one is expected to buy for oneself. As the 1976 Declaration of the World Health Organization put it, the enjoyment of the highest attainable standard of health is one of the fundamental rights of every human being without distinction of race, religion, political belief, economic or social condition. As has just been remarked, in a liberal society, basic health is seen as one of the indispensable conditions for the exercise of personal autonomy.
It's clear that there are many challenges that need to be addressed, but, through robust and targeted research, these can most probably be conquered within the next 10 years. Mobility will change in such potentially significant ways and in association with so many other technological developments, such as telepresence and virtual reality, that it is hard to make concrete predictions about the future. However, one thing is certain: change is coming, and the need to be flexible in response to this will be vital for those involved in manufacturing the vehicles that will deliver future mobility.